Ahoy folks, Craig signing in for Pure Xbox, and today we're finally able to share our review of Bethesda's big, brave interstellar RPG, Starfield. Now this review was written by PJ O'Reilly for PureXbox.com and turned into video by me. Depending on how much you bought into the hype during the long run-up to the release of Bethesda's Starfield, it's hard to know quite what you might have been expecting when you finally sat down to press the start button and get stuck in. Was this going to be some monumental step forward for video games? A piece of interactive art that forever changed the landscape? A seismic shift for the RPG genre as a whole? Or just, well, Skyrim in space?
Oh dear. I believe I see where this is leading.
Luckily for us, all we really wanted was the latter, because that's pretty much what we've got here. Yes, in the end, Starfield isn't some dramatic, game-changing moment. It's very much in line with what's come before from this studio, and is a great big sprawling RPG that's full of heart, full of fun, and full of all that jank that we've pretty much come to expect from Bethesda at this point. Its menus are a pain in the neck, its maps and inventories are bewildering at the best of times, and it often feels like there are too many ways to do the same thing. Can I fly straight to my destination? Do I have to fast travel? Should I hold X or open a menu and just jump from there? And of course, all of the usual messy cameras, misbehaving NPCs are all present and correct.
I honestly feel guilty with how perfect everything is.
I mean, look at their eyes. What a lovely day they're having. But to focus on these relatively minor points, and in the grand scale of all things, they are relatively minor, would be to sweat the small stuff while a galaxy full of excellent adventures awaits. There isn't the level of freedom we expected, or perhaps we were led to believe. This isn't anything like No Man's Sky, and there's been plenty of chatter online already about the barriers that you'll run into on planets, and yeah, we don't need to regurgitate any of that. However, for all the things that haven't transpired as much as we may have wanted or expected them to, there's still so much good stuff here that, in the end, we've fallen entirely in love with Starfield.
Anyway, catch a smile out there.
This is Bethesda's best RPG, there's no doubt about it, and for as much jank as there is, it's still far more polished on release than anything that's come before from the studio. It looks fantastic overall, a galaxy packed full of awe-inspiring vistas, incredibly evocative planets, and that's even when they're entirely barren, and some of the best large hubs and cities we've seen in the genre. Quite simply, there's a fantastic universe to set about exploring. If you want a sprawling sci-fi narrative that goes to some surprisingly interesting and emotional places, which we won't spoil, seamlessly endless side quests, activities, and breathless exploration to indulge in, it's all here. We love Morrowind, we're utterly spellbound by Oblivion, and have bought pretty much every version of Skyrim, which is not a proud boast, but one that we have done, and we reckon that it's this one, it's Starfield, that we'll end up loving the most in time. Amidst all of the frivolous side missions and narrative strands that break off in multiple directions to less serious stuff, classic sci-fi themes are explored to interesting effect as you follow along the main storyline. Humanity's place in the universe, the meaning of existence, religion versus science, and all of that stuff that keeps our beds nice and sweaty at night is married to an aesthetic that harkens back to the 1970s, to that grim and grimy version of space travel that takes something so fantastical and roots it in a gritty reality. It's an excellent choice, making the world feel lived in, dirty, beaten up, and you can see the years of work that's gone into the details here, with every major location jam-packed full of lovingly crafted environmental storytelling. Spaceship cockpits are made up of huge banks of wonderfully bleepy and bloopy buttons and complex graphs, and listen, it may seem like a small thing to focus on, but the doors in this game, so many wonderful doors. The game's larger hub areas are all nicely distinct from one another, managing to evoke memories of the likes of Mass Effect through the rather sterile New Atlantis, the Fallout series in the form of Aquila City, and even Cyberpunk 2077 when you finally get around to visiting the aptly named Neon. There are also plenty of smaller settlements, outposts, and camps to discover as you blast from planet to planet via some menus, unfortunately, ensuring that you'll get your fill of meeting strangers to take on random silly errands, solve small-time local problems, and disappear into or down every unexplored cavern and facility you come across in classic Bethesda fashion.
Don't give me that. I know that ship is stocked with loot. I've heard enough out of you. Kill them!
In terms of combat, well, it's easily the best we've ever seen in a Bethesda RPG. There's a messy kinetic madness to the shooting here. It actually feels weighted. Enemies are just about smart enough to make engagements interesting. Locations provide all of the explosive barrels and other components you need to make a right old mess. And there's an exquisite range of guns and melee weapons, grenades, mines, and hacking tricks and traps to make use of as you go. The combat has been the biggest surprise for us, really. It's not just serviceable or an afterthought when compared to any other aspect of the game. It's genuinely great, punchy, and satisfying stuff, even if we do still sort of miss the ultra-violence of Fallout's VAT system. Oh, and the ship-to-ship action, the space dogfights, they may be rather small-scale and a bit repetitive, but they're fun, mechanically solid encounters that feel great and give you a chance to put all of your ship's upgrades and skill tree unlocks to work.
Do you swear to protect and defend the citizens of the United Colonies to the best of your abilities?
There's the usual expanse of factions and various parties to join, surprisingly deep customization for weapons, tons of cool gear and cosmetics to hunt down, as well as a galaxy's worth of spaceships to steal, upgrade, and even design from scratch. You've got outposts to construct, homes to purchase and furnish, endless planets to survey and explore, cooking, crafting, skill trees, powers. It goes on and on. And it's all backed up by super tight core gameplay and a narrative that actually delivers.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about.
The essence of Bethesda's classic RPG magic hasn't been lost in this dizzying mix either. All of the sneaking around and nicking stuff for no reason, the endless books and notes to read, the unlocking of millions of doors and chests, and just the infinite wandering, discovering, and getting into trouble. It's all here, even if it does feel a little more serious than usual.
Don't come any closer. Identify yourself.
Without wanting to spoil anything at all, we should also mention that the New Game Plus aspect of this game is clever. It's handled in a way that immediately pushes you into more exploration, further playthroughs, and a feeling that things are actually not nearly as wrapped up as you might have thought. And that's all we'll say on that front. Of course, as we mentioned at the start of the review, there are also some notable issues. The constant menus, the amount of time you need to spend in inventories, the many loading screens, the fiddly and often confusing nature of traveling here and there, and the bugs that see you talking to the back of a head or spinning around during an important conversation. All of this stuff can grate. There isn't the level of next-gen advancement that we'd expect overall. But if you can accept that, if you can accept that Starfield really is just the next big Bethesda RPG, that it's very much in line with its predecessors, then you can get on with having a very good time with a game that is, despite its flaws, right up there with the very best of 2023.
Well, I suppose calling you a rock breaker may have been a bit out of line.
One of the very first things we did when we started exploring Starfield, and we're sure we're not alone in this, was to make our way to Earth, landing our ship in a vast, lifeless desert and going for a lonely, silent wander. We didn't find anything beyond a few craters and caves, but just being there, wandering this barren landscape, stopping to look up at the night sky and just considering this reality. It's one of the most powerful experiences we've had in a video game this year. This is exactly the sort of knockabout Bethesda RPG we know and love. But it's also got its moments of feeling like something more, something deeper, and we can't wait to see how it develops and grows in the weeks, months, and years to come. Starfield is Bethesda's best RPG to date. An enormous space odyssey that serves up some incredibly evocative and engaging exploration, satisfying combat, and a narrative that had us hooked right to the end. Yes, there are issues here and there with the usual jank and some very messy and fiddly menus and interactions, but all of these problems feel minor when compared to everything this game gets right. In a year that's been packed full of absolutely essential games, Starfield manages to sit right up top with some of the very best of them. After all the hype and bluster, this is just a very, very good RPG, and a game we'll be playing and replaying for a long time to come. What are your thoughts on Starfield, and have you collected all of the in-game plushies yet? Let us know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. All that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!